Buying a new broadband deal is a lot harder than it used to be. These days, there's so many different providers and so many different offers that the process can actually be quite difficult. As a result, we've seen a lot of people waste money on broadband and sometimes get the wrong package for their needs. In this video, we've explained the 5 mistakes that people always make when buying broadband, so you can avoid these mistakes yourself, save money, and get the right package for your household. But before we begin, we'd like to thank 3 for sponsoring this video. Their 5G hub offers a cheap, simple, easy to set up way to get online at home. Using this router, you can get average download speeds of 150 to 300 megabits per second for as little as £22 a month. There's no engineer visit needed to get set up, and we were able to get speeds of more than 700 megabits per second from our testing. Make sure to click the link to the 3 website in the description to see if you can get the 5G hub at your address, and to find what prices they're offering at the moment. Also in the description, we've linked to our broadband deals guide. If you're looking for a new provider, this article explains some of the different offers on the market and the differences between them, helping you find the right plan for your specific needs. So the first mistake we see people make is not finding all of the available providers at your address. If you don't do this, you might not find the cheapest deal or the provider with the best customer service. And people do this all the time because there's so many new fibre networks being deployed all around the country that it can actually be tricky to find out who's available. And it's made even harder by the fact that you can't use comparison sites to do this, because they'll only display deals from providers that are paying them. So here are some providers you might like to check out depending on where you live. Different areas of the country have their own independent fibre networks, in some areas at least, and these companies are definitely worth checking out, such as GigaClear, Community Fibre, and HyperOptic. Even if you can only get OpenReach broadband at your address, there's still going to be at least 20 different providers you can choose from. So that's why, in our broadband deals guide here, we've summarised the best options. Make sure to click the link in the description to this article, and then click through the providers' websites to see if you can use them at your address. Even if you can't access the new fibre networks like Community Fibre just yet, there are lots of different OpenReach providers to choose from, like BT, Vodafone, PlusNet, TalkTalk, and Sky. And at many addresses, Virgin Media offers the fastest deals because they have a completely separate fibre network. And the final sort of category of provider to check is 5G broadband. At many addresses, using something like the 3 5G hub will be the fastest way to get online. And even if you can get cheap full fibre broadband, the 5G hub will often be the cheapest way of getting a 300 megabit per second or faster download speed. Most fibre providers are charging a lot more than £22 a month for a plan with a similar download speed to what this router offers. So make sure to click the link to the 3 website in the description to see if you can get this router at your address. Often, people waste a lot of money paying for way more bandwidth than they actually need. Full fibre broadband can be very expensive, so if you're paying for extremely fast speeds, but you don't really need them, you could be wasting more than £100 a year on broadband. But how do you know how much bandwidth you actually need? To find out, come to our broadband speed needs calculator, which we've linked to in the description. Here, you just need to put in some basic details about your household and how you use the internet. Then, the calculator will give you a minimum required download and upload speed. So let's say we have 2 people online for less than 2 hours a day, and 2 more people who are online for more than 2 hours a day, doing quite a lot of different internet activities. So in this case, you'll need a download speed of at least 103 megabits per second. Even with 4 people at home, you probably don't need a 500 megabit download speed. It's just nice to have. So you could save money with a plan like Virgin Media M250 or any other 150 or 250 megabit plan from another provider. It's also quite common to make the opposite mistake, where you don't get enough speed for your household's needs. If you make this mistake, what happens is, when a lot of people get online, everything will slow down because you won't have enough bandwidth to meet everyone's demands at that point in time. It's a bit like a traffic tunnel, with cars passing through. The more bandwidth, the wider the tunnel, and the more data your entire connection can download at any given moment. But if there's too much traffic passing through, or data you're requesting, there'll be a traffic jam, and everything will slow down. So again, this is where our broadband speed needs calculator can come in really handy. Most people don't use a tool like this, which is why it's so common for people to get the wrong amount of bandwidth for their needs. So to make sure you get plenty of bandwidth, it's a good idea to treat this as a minimum, as the calculator suggests here. So if you got this result, we probably wouldn't buy a plan with 100 megabit download speed. Going for at least 125 or 150 megabits would be better, or maybe up to 200 if you want to be really safe. The good thing is though, it's often a lot easier to upgrade your internet speed compared to downgrading it. If your speeds aren't quite fast enough, most of the time it should be pretty easy to upgrade to a faster plan, because providers are always happy to take your money. It's just going to a slower speed when you're in a contract can be a bit more difficult. So if you're not sure between two different plans, going for the slower one should be fine. Before you buy broadband, it's important to investigate how good the provider's customer service is. This can be a bit of work, but it can really save you a lot of headache in the long term, because there's nothing worse than going with a provider with bad customer service. And this sort of research is what we've done here on our broadband deals guide. To rank these providers, part of what we've looked at is their customer service. So you can use this list as a good starting point to look at providers with good consistency and good customer service. For example, BT's customer support is UK based, and they're pretty quick to answer the phone. We've used their Fibre 1 plan and found their team to be pretty helpful when you go to them with issues. So make sure to click the link in the description to our broadband deals guide to learn more about the customer service of each different provider. Okay, but what if you want to do this yourself and look at a provider maybe that's not on this list? How do you tell how good a company's customer service is? So the most obvious first thing to do might be to look at their reviews on Trustpilot or through their Google reviews. This can be a good place to start, but you've got to be a bit careful with the information here. On Trustpilot in particular, the more care they give to their profile, the better it'll look. If companies are paying really close attention to their Trustpilot, this can be a good thing, because if you leave them a negative review, they can escalate it within the support team, helping to fix your issue. But it also means that on Trustpilot, positive reviews will be more incentivized. For example, people can be invited to leave a review if the company really wants to maintain their rating here. But with a company like BT or Virgin Media, for example, they probably won't do that because they don't pay any attention to Trustpilot. So can you use Trustpilot as a reliable source of information? The answer is yes, you definitely can. The thing to do is look for patterns in their negative reviews. If you see the same issue pop up all the time, then there's probably a problem. But just because Community Fibre has 4.5 stars and BT has 1.4 doesn't mean that Community Fibre is 3 times better than BT. Just because BT isn't looking at this, and they're not asking customers who've had a good experience to write a review. There is a better way to look at providers' customer service. Every so often, Ofcom performs a big customer survey of different providers' customer service, and then they publish it in this report on their website. They look at all the major providers, and then ask customers about their satisfaction, as well as looking at the number of complaints that Ofcom's receiving, and even things like average call wait times. This is probably the best way to look at different providers' customer service. The only issue is, it's only the biggest providers that Ofcom's looking at here. None of the new fibre networks are included just yet, because they're not big enough. So to look at how good a provider like UFibre or Community Fibre is, you'll need to rely on their Trustpilot reviews. So as you probably know, when you buy broadband, your provider will ship you a router, which is supposedly set up to offer you the best experience with their broadband service. The problem is, different providers' routers can vary massively in performance, and a lot of people don't know how to assess the quality of two different routers before buying. Often, when people complain about Wi-Fi issues after switching broadband provider, it's just because the router they've got isn't a good fit for their house, or the router itself is just bad. So for example, when you buy BT broadband, you get their Smart Hub 2 router, but this device is actually quite out of date by now, even though BT is still shipping it on their fastest plans. It has a few technical limitations, like an inability to set up custom DNS on the router, but the main issue is it only comes with Wi-Fi 5 signal. This is an older Wi-Fi standard, which is a bit out of date at the moment. In larger houses, you'll probably have your Wi-Fi signal drop off at the furthest points from the router. By contrast, even though BT owns EE, they ship a much better router with their EE broadband deals. This is a much newer device, which comes with Wi-Fi 6, which is a much newer Wi-Fi standard. Switching between these two routers, we could get Wi-Fi in a lot more places we couldn't before, using EE's router, even in the back garden. And some other providers offer even better routers. For example, with Vodafone, they ship you a Wi-Fi 6E router, which is an even better standard, and they even include this signal booster device, which you can put somewhere else in the house to help you get better signal. We're not saying BT's router is unusable. In small flats or houses, it's perfectly capable. But the mistake a lot of people make is not really looking at the specs of the router before buying a broadband plan. For larger houses, BT broadband might not be a good choice at the moment, unless you don't mind replacing the router, or maybe installing a mesh Wi-Fi setup. EE or Vodafone broadband, with their much better routers, would be a better choice. So when buying, the main thing to look for is the Wi-Fi standard that the router offers. Wi-Fi 6 is good, and Wi-Fi 6E is great, and you may even begin to see Wi-Fi 7 from some providers, although these routers are quite expensive at the moment. So thanks for watching, and remember, click the link in the description to our broadband deals guide to learn more about the different providers on the market at the moment and the differences between them. And if you have any questions about choosing a broadband provider, or you have any questions about anything we discussed, leave a comment below and we'll get back to you.